If I had to start learning game dev all over again, there is an exact 6-step system I would follow, which is the same system I follow nowadays when I want to learn a new technology as a full-stack engineer. Now, this is not some magical way to learn game dev with no effort. Game dev, like most things in life, takes time and practice. But if you follow these steps, you will make steady progress without feeling completely lost. So let's break it down step by step, starting with the first and most important part, choosing your game engine. A game engine is a toolset that you will use to bring your ideas to life. It provides ways to handle physics, graphics, animation, scripts, and anything you may need throughout the development of your game. This choice is important as it will define which language you need to learn. Now, I've got a whole video where I rank every game engine out there, so I would recommend checking that out if you want a deep dive into the topic. But to sum it up real quick, for beginners I recommend Godot, GameMaker, or Unity. Godot is lightweight, beginner-friendly, and open source. It's the engine I used for my first commercial project, and it's perfect if you're starting from scratch. Some popular games built with Godot are Potato, Dome Keeper, and Endoparasitic, amongst others. GameMaker is great if you're focusing on 2D games, which you should at the start, and you can use it for free for non-commercial projects. Some popular releases that use GameMaker are Nuclear Throne, Spelunky, and obviously we cannot forget Undertale. And then we have Unity. I will be honest, I hate Unity, but it was the king for a long time, so there are tons of tutorials and forums out there, making it a good place to start. As for games built with Unity, the list is almost never ending, but some games that you will definitely recognize would be Cuphead, Rust, and of course, Hollow Knight. You may be wondering, what about Unreal Engine? Unreal is incredible for stunning visuals and big projects, but for a beginner, it's way more complex than you probably need. If you have a background in 3D, for example, it's not a bad choice, as it will let your skills shine. But if you're a beginner, I would learn another engine first, to then migrate later once you know the basics. Now that you picked your weapon, you need to familiarize yourself with its language and tools. The best way to do this? Start with a simple tutorial. Don't stress about what type of game you're making right now. Even if your dream is to create the next Stardew Valley, your focus at this stage is to learn how to use the engine and its tools. Any tutorial will work. Just search something like Godot tutorial or Unity tutorial and click on the first result. And hey, if you would like me to make a beginner-friendly tutorial for Godot, let me know. Now, you probably heard the term tutorial hell in the past. People love to complain about tutorials, or they love the amount of views those videos make. Even I will probably make one at some point, not gonna lie. They seem to always go viral. But the truth is that those tutorials are just another tool that you can use. And like any other tool, there's good ways to use them and bad ways to use them. So what's a good way to use tutorials? First of all, follow them actively, not passively. What I mean by this is that rather than waiting for the tutorial to finish some explanation to then copy and paste the code into your project, you should first think about what you're trying to make. And if you're a bit more advanced, maybe even try doing it yourself, and then compare your approach to the tutorial. And even if you feel lost and you cannot come up with a solution, rather than copy-pasting, type the code yourself and add comments to it to make sure that you understand it. I know this may feel slow, but in the long run it will help. And second, experiment as you go. If the tutorial asks you to move the character left and right, try tweaking the code to add a jump, or add acceleration and friction to polish the movement. Break the code, fix it, and make it your own. These little experiments are where real learning happens. But here's the thing, you cannot rely on tutorials forever. At some point you need to take off your training wheels, and that's where the next step of this journey begins. Making a small, complete game. There's no need to overthink this. It doesn't need to be flashy, groundbreaking, or perfectly polished. It just needs 3 things: a start screen, a game loop, and third, a condition to end the game. Think of this as your first official project, where you're putting everything you learned so far into practice. I actually have a video where I go over some of the best project ideas to help you learn game dev. It's not a tutorial, I don't walk you through the code, but instead I outline the steps you should follow and leave you to figure out the details. Why? Because that's the best way to make sure that you actually understand what you're doing. The goal here is to finish something. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to exist. You will learn way more by completing a simple project than by chasing perfection on something half-finished. The project can be anything you like as long as it's small. In my video, I go over the steps to make a text-based adventure, a 2D platformer, a top-down shooter, and a tower defense game, amongst others. Of course, while making your first game, you're going to hit roadblocks, bugs that make no sense, mechanics that just won't work the way you want, and art that looks, well, let's just call it abstract. That's normal. Every developer, no matter how experienced, struggles with these things. The trick is to embrace the process. When you run into a bug, don't panic. Break it down, research it, and learn from it. Google is your best friend here. Trust me, someone else has likely faced the exact same issue before. And if something feels too overwhelming, simplify. You cannot get your enemy AI to patrol perfectly? Make it move in a straight line for now. The key is to keep the momentum going, even if it means cutting corners for now. You can always refine things later, but for this first project, done is better than perfect. Once you finish this first project, it's finally time to start branching out and exploring the areas of game development that excite you the most. Let's say that you loved creating the art for your game, for example, but it didn't quite look like the vision you had in your head. That's your cue to explore pixel art, digital painting, or maybe even 3D modeling. You don't have to aim for professional level skills right away. Focus on improving just a little bit with each project. Or maybe programming was your favorite part, and now you want to learn about advanced scripting techniques, procedural generation, or AI. The internet is a never-ending game dev library, so make sure to use it. One of the best ways to expand your skills is by creating tiny experiments outside of your main projects. Focus on 1 or 2 areas that interest you and tackle the rest later. I repeat this on almost every video, but game development is a marathon, not a sprint. But we are not done yet. The next step is one of the scariest but most important parts of game development: sharing your work. Putting your game out there on a public platform like itch.io or even Steam might feel intimidating. You may worry about what other people will think about your game. But here's the thing, sharing your work is one of the fastest ways to learn and grow as a developer. When you share your game, you're opening the door to feedback. And feedback can be tough to hear, I know, especially when you've poured your heart into something. But it's also incredibly valuable. It will show you things that you may have overlooked, give you fresh perspectives, and push you to improve in ways you didn't expect. On top of that, sharing your work helps you build connections. You will meet other game developers, players, and maybe even teammates for future projects. There's a massive game dev community out there, and being a part of it can make your journey a lot less lonely and a lot more fun. And now that you finished your first project, expanded your skills, and shared your work, what's next? The answer is simple: keep going. Game development isn't about making one perfect game, it's about improving with every project. Each time you start a new game, you will bring everything you learned from the last one. The bugs you fix, the mechanics you tweak, the feedback you receive, all of it makes you a better developer. For your second or third project, aim to push yourself a little further. If your first game was a basic platformer, try adding a mechanic like double jumps or wall sliding. If you made a top-down shooter, experiment with new enemy types or leveling systems. Every project is a chance to learn something new. A really good way to approach this is by participating in game jams. Game jams are perfect for pushing your limits and experimenting with new ideas. The time constraint forces you to focus on what matters the most, making you prioritize creativity and problem solving. You will get a chance to work on something different without the pressure of long-term commitment. Plus, you will often get instant feedback from other participants and the community, which is invaluable for improving your skills. And that's really it. Iteration after iteration, you will keep improving and learning new things until you're ready for the big challenge, which is publishing your first commercial game. You can check this video to see how much money I made with mine, as well as some things I learned from the process. Or you can check this other one, which YouTube thinks you will like. See ya!